As mentioned, this is part 2, and in this video we're going to be making the shackle, as it turns out. I was calling it something else in the first video. So let's start off with the torus. As you know, I'm using my add-on for this one, BB Toolkit Pro. Links in the description if you're interested in that. Anyway, let's add a torus. You can use Shift-A to do the same. Let's reduce the minor segments there to 8. I'm happy with that. Let's go with that torus. Of course, we need to rotate it 90 degrees on the x-axis, like so. Let's just position that in the appropriate place. I'm going to apply the rotation. That's Ctrl-A to open the apply menu if you don't have the add-on. Let's start by selecting these vertices here. Maybe these ones too, and just deleting those. And we'll take this edge loop there with Alt-click and extrude that out to about there. A little bit of rotation. Add the loop cut there. Basically just recreating the shape, something similar to the schematic there in the background. That's looking good. And finally, let's take this edge loop at the bottom and extrude that out. Let's go into solid mode and switch to edge mode. I'm going to press F to fill, with the edge loop selected of course, and Ctrl-B to bevel. And that will do for now. Let's right click and shade smooth. Now let's think about this notch that we have in the metal shackle and how we're going to do that. So I've selected the edge loop there and pressed G twice, which is edge slide or vertex slide. Added a couple of more loop cuts with Ctrl-R. And now we're going to use the knife tool. And while you're in the knife tool, press the C key, and that enables it to cut through, as you can see there in the options. That will cut through the hole to the other side. And right click and then enter. And you can see we have a nice cut there. Let's just zoom in there. Let's switch X-ray mode off. So we need to make a hole there. Let's start by deleting these faces just there. And voila, they're gone. Now let's select these vertices just there, or edges, whatever you prefer, and press F to fill. And select 2 vertices. I subdivided the edge, by the way, hence why it's got another cut in the middle. Do the same for the bottom there. So F to fill, select the edge, right click, subdivide. And I forgot to split that one, don't make the same mistake. You can see there I should have connected those lower faces there, never mind. Let's turn our attention to this other side now. I'm going to switch to normal mode. It's not looking quite right, but there we go, it's going to work now. There it is. To be honest with you, you don't have to do this, just extrude it out, rotate it, scale it, until it looks about right. Which is what I'm doing now. And this edge, I've just pressed GG to slide it, and then to rotate it a touch. And let's leave it about there, actually. Okie doke, so how are we going to make that circular thing? I'm going to select all of these edges here, just on the one half. Yeah, it might be a little bit convoluted, but it does work, and feel free to try different methods. So with those edges selected, I pressed Shift-D to duplicate them, and P to separate them into a new object. So now we have these edges as a new object, and we're going to use those to effectively spin them and create the circle. But we need our pivot point to be somewhere in the middle of that circle. I'm using vertex snapping, of course. You can hold down the Control key to activate snapping while you're transforming things. And that will do for now. So the next thing we need to do is tab into edit mode, select all of those edges, these 4. I'm going to press SX. However, we need to snap, or should I say scale, towards the 3D cursor. So we put that there with Shift S, cursor to selected, and we'll use our transform point as 3D cursor. And there we go, SX0, enter. That will flatten them out, but of course there's still 4 edges there. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So with that done, I'm going to select them again. I'm going to head over to our toolbar there, and you can see we have the spin tool, which is an underused tool probably. Probably don't use that too often, if at all. But in this case, it's exactly what we want. So first of all, let's click that plus button there, because we don't see the options until we click that. And you can see it's rotating around the Z axis at the moment, which we don't want. We want it to be on the Y axis. So let's give that a value of 1. And that's the result. We've got 12 steps, which is pretty good. Now obviously these are a little bit too small at the moment, so I select everything and then S for scale and Shift Y to exclude the Y axis. Make that just so it intersects with the part hanging down. Just touches that. Don't worry if it goes through, that's perfectly fine. But you can bring it down so it intersects better. That way when we do the Boolean operation, it works without any glitches, hopefully. Now I do have a Boolean operation in the add-on, just there. So I'm going to use the eyedropper, select that object. You can select the type of Boolean you want and click add. You can change that to difference. You can see there's our modifier, which I'm going to apply the Boolean modifier and hide the circle that we used to create the Boolean. And with that done, I'm just going to select these faces that are now left over that we're intersecting and delete those. And also the same for the ones at the bottom there. Cool. Okay. Let's bring back. Now we've got our profile there. Now you may have to do some cleaning up, as you most often do with Booleans. So I first did a merge vertices by distance using the add-on. Do the same with the M key for merge. Sorry, not that one. You can right click and select merge vertices by distance. But anyway, with that done, I'm going to just make it visible again, that part that we copied earlier. And all we need to do now is line up in fact, the edges are already lined up nicely. That's why we used those 4 edges initially. So let's select both of the objects and press J to join them, or Control J, I should say, not J, Control J to join them into one object. I'm going to delete these faces there, because all we need to do now is select these 2 edges and press the F key to fill it. Let's close that gap like that, and do the same on the other side. So select these 4 faces, delete them, and very simply fill those in. Now it looks a bit odd. If I click the face orientation, you can see we have some normals facing the wrong way. So with that, select everything in edit mode and recalculate normals. Do the same with Alt N. That's looking good. Cool. Let's Alt click this edge and press F. Do the same for the other side. Now with these 2 faces, n-gons selected, we can press the I key to create an inset. I think that's good. And I'm going to join these vertices so we have some nice quads on those faces now. Just do the same on the other side, of course. That's quite easy to do. Again, we're keeping the geometry very simple. Just check our normals again. They look good. As I was saying, model, let's keep it simple and then add a subdivision surface modifier to give it more geometry. And of course, right click the shade smooth. That's looking pretty good. And let's turn our attention to this part here. So I'm going to speed through this, but all I'm doing here is creating another edge loop and selecting some vertices, joining them to create the edges and an inset, which I will do just there probably in a moment. There we go, just create an inset with those faces. The reason I'm doing that is to support the existing shape that we have. So after that, it's a case of redistributing the vertices and the edges, so they're not all cramped up in one place basically. So spread them out evenly as best you can. It's a little bit fiddly, but it doesn't take too long. So I come back to it again and put another edge loop, or a loop cut there with Ctrl R. So I decided to move these back up, another edge loop there, and then space them out once more. And that should be it. And I think that's pretty cool. Doesn't have to be perfect because you won't actually see this all the time. But anyway, let's move on, because at the moment we've got our pivot point for this shackle in the wrong place. It needs to rotate around this axis. So my 3D cursor is already in the right place, but if yours isn't, you can put the 3D cursor by selecting these faces there, like that, and then pressing Shift S for the snap menu and cursor to select it, and that will put it bang in the middle. Now we can select the object, right click, set origin to 3D cursor, and there you go. That rotates just like that, perfect. All that's left to do now is move that into position. So I'm going to select one of these bolts there, Shift S again, cursor to selected, and that puts it right in the middle. And then with the shackle selected, Shift S again, selection to cursor. Now of course our padlock is not in the world center exactly, so I'm going to do it by eye just for a second. But knowing me, I like to be as perfect as I can be with these placements, so I'm going to use this object. I'm going to tab into edit mode. So we can turn the wireframe on. So I tab into edit mode and add a loop cut in the middle. That way I can just snap using vertex snapping. However, make sure you change that to center, not closest. And hold down Control as you do that, and it will snap to the center. Thank you, Mr. Vader. Very kind of you, sir. Now we've got a big gap there, rightly so. So let's tweak this a little bit. So I'm going to bring these vertices in, use vertex snapping back to closest, not center, and just move those so they're quite snug, but not too snug. Let's give it a little bit of a gap so the shackle can actually rotate without too much friction. And of course we have to move the front plate and the back plate and the ring that we also have there. Let's put that back to, well, it is closest actually on the snapping. Doesn't always work when you snap, but try it again and it should work again properly. I did forget to move the bolts, but I'll do that later on. Not a problem. So that looks good so far, happy with that. And finally we need a hole where the shackle goes into the padlock. So as you can see there, that's where the hole needs to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this first and see where the furthest point where the shackle intersects the body part. It's about there. So we need to make sure our hole at least goes up as far as that. So I'm going to add a loop cut just there and do the same on the other side, underside. Let's just turn off the subdiv so we can see what we're doing. Add a couple of more loop cuts there. I've aligned them with vertex snapping, and I got rid of the loop cut I put in the middle earlier. Don't need that anymore. Let's just fill this with F. And of course, when you're doing fills and extrusions, make sure you check your normals. The only thing left to do now is to harden these edges with a mean bevel weight, or a bevel weight. There we go, mean bevel weight of 1. That would automatically put a bevel on that, thanks to the bevel modifier. And finally, check the normals, just to make sure everything is okay. Cool, thanks for joining me in this one. Now coming up in the next episode. Good question. Well, I'll tell you, we're going to use this vector file that I created, import it into Blender as an SVG file. You can see there in the background clips from the episode coming up where I'm tidying up the SVG file. You get it into a workable and usable state. So lots of tidying up there, and also start working on the key. So make sure you come back for part 3, join me in that. And I'll let this play out. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe if you like my content. I'll catch you next time, bye for now.